all set, right? This is pretty loud. Oh, thank you. Haribo, Haribo. You got to turn off that one. Yes. Okay. Okay. Hare Krishna. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming and joining our discussion today. Ram NandaPrabhu, could you turn down the mic just a hair? Or someone just turn down the mic, just turn down the volume just a hair. It's a little bit loud. Okay. Okay. It's up there. Every time I give class, we get better with our technology. It actually works. Okay, so today we're discussing the 6 loving exchanges between devotees. Has anyone ever heard of this before and know where it comes from? Do we have another microphone?
Yeah.
What's that? Nectar of instruction, yeah. Oh, yeah, in case anybody has. Okay, so, let's see. Okay, so this is from a book called The Nectar of Instruction. And the Sanskrit word for nectar of instruction is Upadeshamrita, which literally means Amrita is nectar and Upadesha is instruction. And this book was written by Srila Rupa Goswami. So in case no one knows who is Srila Rupa Goswami, well, I'll give a quick, brief, a few words that Prabhupada says about Rupa Goswami in case no one knows who he is. I won't go into his whole history and accolades, but just to say how important he is to our Krishna consciousness movement. So in the Nectar of Instruction in the preface, Prabhupada says the Krishna consciousness movement is conducted under the supervision of Srila Rupa Goswami. So this is a pretty significant statement. If our entire movement is being supervised by Rupa Goswami, we should probably know who he is. And we should know what books he wrote and study his books, right? So it's it behooves us to learn that. Prabhupada says the Gaudiya Vaishnavas or Bengali Vaishnavas are mostly followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of whom the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan are direct disciples. So Rupa Goswami is one of the 6 Goswamis, which means he's a direct disciple of Lord Chaitanya. Is there anybody here who doesn't know who Lord Chaitanya is? Or want to know who Lord Chaitanya is? Okay. And if you're too afraid to ask now, you can always come to me after class and I'll tell you. Okay, so Prabhupada says, therefore, Srila Narottam Das Thakur has sung Rupa Raghunatha Pade Haibeyakuti, Kabe Hame Bujaba Se Yugala Piriti. When I am eager to understand the literature given by the Goswamis, then I shall be able to understand the transcendental loving affairs of Radha and Krishna. So as Hare Krishnas in this movement of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, under the guidance of Rupa Goswami and Srila Prabhupada, the founder, what's our goal? What is our goal in Krishna consciousness? Do pass on the mic. Hope there's no feedback.
So
serve devotees. Okay, service attitude, that gets us to our goal. What's our ultimate goal? Service is part of it. But what's our ultimate goal?
you mean like the last goal?
Yeah, like ultimate, what's the final? Go back to Godhead. And what does that mean? What does it mean to be in Godhead? Is it just a place? Yeah, Goloka Vrindavan. And so our goal is love of Krishna, right? So reconnect with Krishna, to have a loving exchange with Krishna. So who is the best servant of Krishna? Say in the microphone. Srimati Radharani. So when he says, when I'm eager to understand the literature given by the Goswamis, then I can understand Radha and Krishna. Well, that means understanding their loving relationship and our goal, right? So again, every sentence Prabhupada says has so much meaning. When we read this, it means we should read the books of the Goswamis. And Prabhupada has translated this as one of the most important books, this Nectar of Instruction. Okay, so he says Srila Rupa Goswami was the leader of all the Goswamis, and to guide our activities, he gave us this Upadeshamrita, the nectar of instruction to follow. So this is one of our bhakti guidebooks that we want to follow. So, and then he says, as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left behind him the 8 verses known as Shikshashtaka, Rupa Goswami gave us Upadeshamrita so that we may become pure Vaishnavas. So again, when we practice religion or a spiritual path, we should know our goal. It shouldn't just be something we do ritualistically. It shouldn't just be something we do to be pious, right? We don't just show up to the temple to be pious. We show up to learn how to reach our goal. And our goal is to reconnect with Krishna and be in the spiritual world, at least in our consciousness. It's not just a destination. It's a place. It's situation of our consciousness. And so if we know that, then we should take seriously when Prabhupada says that these are books that guide us. So if you have a goal, or say like you have if you have to go somewhere that you haven't, well, we have been to the spiritual world, but let's say you're going somewhere that you forgot how to get there. And you just get in the car and you start driving. And you think that the ride is just the ultimate goal. It's just being in the car driving aimlessly, right? So you're just kind of, and you're turning on the AC and listening to the radio and stuff. You're like, I'm doing all the things I'm supposed to do in the car. Yeah, but where are you going? So we can we can say, well, I showed up at the temple to do the thing I'm supposed to do, which is show up at the temple, but where are you going? What's the purpose? So when Prabhupada says these things, so we may become pure Vaishnavas, this is our guidebook, then we should really read these books and try to learn how to make advancement on that path. And when we know what our goal is, we type it into Google Maps and then we follow that map and we get to our goal, right? We reach our destination. And then Google Maps lets us know when we reached our destination. So we have guidebooks that let us know when we're getting closer to our destination, how to get there, and when we're getting closer and when we've reached it. Okay, so that's just a side note on being, really intentional with our practice. We want to reach our goal. So today we're doing text 4 of Nectar of Instruction, the 6 loving exchanges. Dadati pratigrinati guyamakyati prichati bhunte bojayate chaiva sadvidam pritilakshanam. Offering gifts in charity, accepting charitable gifts, revealing one's mind in confidence, inquiring confidentially, accepting prasad and offering prasad are the 6 symptoms of love shared by one devotee and another. Definitely everyone recognizes the prasad one, right? Because that's what we do we're like the kitchen religion. So we're always sharing prasadam, especially at these Sunday feasts, or as Prabhupada would call the Sunday love feast. You have some philosophy, some kirtan, and prasadam. So we've got that part down. So what we have here, so it says 6 loving exchanges, right? But we have actually 3 sets of exchanges, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to go over each set, each of these 3 sets, which is a total of 6 exchanges. So if we practice, so the idea is that this is nectar of instruction. Rupa Goswami is instructing us to do this. So if we practice these exchanges, then we'll develop that spiritual love. And of course, they have to be done in the right consciousness, because we can say, well, here's a tray of spiritual food. Here's a person in front of me. Here's some food for you here. And you just throw it on their plate. And next, we want to do it in the right consciousness, that it's actually an exchange of love, that we see this as spiritual food, that we see a living entity standing in front of us, who's also a servant of Krishna, and we're trying to distribute Krishna's mercy to them. So we want to do it with love and affection. It can't just be, again, ritualistic, that you're just trying to get people through the line and quickly, and you're kind of rude to them, and and then you're like, I did my job, I did my loving exchange, right? It has to be in the right consciousness. All of these things have to be done in the right consciousness. You wouldn't just, if you had a gift for somebody, you wouldn't just like drive by and throw it out the window and tell them you gave them a gift, right? You'd hand it to them and there'd be an exchange. Okay, so the 3 sets of these 6, the 3 sets of these 6 exchanges. The first set is offering gifts in charity and accepting your charitable gifts, dadati pratigrinati. You may know the Sanskrit to this verse by the end of this class because we're going to talk about it for each one. So this is the exchange. You're offering gifts and you're accepting gifts. So that's what's always happening with these exchanges. Something's being given, something's being received. Then revealing one's mind in confidence and inquiring confidentially. Guyam akyati prichati. And then accepting prasad and offering prasad. Bhute bojayate chaiva. Where's Praneshwar? He's the master of prasadam distribution. He always wants to serve. He's like the icon of this third set, or this these last two exchanges is he loves to offer prasad. He loves to serve people prasad. So you'll see him always going around making sure everybody gets as much prasadam, and he does it very lovingly. So he's the example of someone who has perfected this one. Okay, so let's start with the first set of loving exchanges, offering gifts in charity and accepting charitable gifts. Dadati pratigrinati. So in the purport, Prabhupada gives what he calls an example of a sublime example of offering a gift. And his sublime example is offering the holy name, distributing or contributing the holy name, as he says. So first he starts with establishing the fact that Krishna consciousness is inherent in all living entities. It's not something that's imposed on a living entity, it's inherent. So he starts with that. He works his way through why this is so important. So first he quotes the Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 22, text 107. Pure love for Krishna is eternally established in the hearts of living entities. It is not something to be gained from another source. When the heart is purified by hearing and chanting, the living entity naturally awakens. So what does it mean to say someone awakens? We have this word like awakening. What does that mean? What does it mean to awaken? And if anybody has an answer, we'll pass the mic around. Who has the mic now? Okay. Anyone have any thoughts what it means to awaken? You have any thoughts? No? Anyone? What does it mean to awaken?
You wake up from sleep.
Yeah, you wake up from sleep, and what's going on when you're sleeping? So you've got a hand on the mic.
So, Lord Krishna is going to be, here as well.
Right. It's dormant there and it wakes up, and we wake up, because what happens when we're asleep?
Okay. I remember that song, Jeet Dala Jeet.
Yeah, wake up. Yeah. So what does it mean? Like, what are we doing when we're asleep?
It is sleeping, we're busy meditating.
Yeah.
Let's see, please get up and do it.
Yeah. So when we're asleep, we're not in the real world, right? We're in a dream state. We're seeing things happening. And if you ever wake up, I don't know, I dream in vivid color, and it's like a movie practically. I'm seeing all the places I'm going and it's all color and there's an apocalypse. There's things like that. So we have this dream and then we wake up and say, oh, that wasn't reality, right? That was just my dream. So we wake up, we see the real world. If you wake up to who you really are, it's kind of like waking up from a dream, as Prabhupada describes. And also, in a sense, it's waking up from amnesia, because we kind of forgot we're servants of God in this world because we're trying to be God. So if you don't know who you really are, if you're not awake and you don't know who you really are, how do you know what to do? Right? If you woke up one day in the hospital and you couldn't remember who you were, where you worked, where you lived, whether or not you had a family, how old you were, and the doctor said, yeah, you have amnesia. Have a nice day. And you just, they like make you leave that. What do you do when you walk out of the hospital? You don't know where to go, what to do. What is my purpose? So when we are asleep to spiritual reality, we don't really know what our purpose is. And when we're awakened, now we have our purpose. Now we know what to do. We know what the goal is, and we move forward towards that goal. Okay, so that's the first thing. Then he says, since Krishna consciousness is inherent in every living entity, everyone should be given a chance to hear about Krishna, right? Because it's in everyone's hearts, Krishna consciousness, and Prabhupada saying they should all be given everyone should be given a chance because it could awaken them from their dream and not knowing where they're going. So he says, contributing or distributing the holy name of the Lord is a sublime example of contributing or giving charity, the Dadati principle. So there's also the other side of that. You're giving it, it also is being received, right? People receive it. Prabhupada says, by the same token, one must also follow the Pratigrinati principle and be willing and ready to receive the transcendental gift. So when we do kirtan today, in about, I want to see what time it is, 35 minutes. Someone will be leading kirtan and we'll be chanting. So we're receiving the holy name and we're saying the holy name. Okay, so this is an example of the first set of exchanges, giving and receiving gifts. This is an example Prabhupada gave in the purport. Before we go on to the second set, does anyone have any questions, points, comments, realizations? Okay, moving right along. The second set of loving exchanges, revealing one's mind in confidence and inquiring confidentially. Guyam Akyati Prichati. So this is the example this is one example Prabhupada gives in the purport. He says, an experienced devotee explains and an inexperienced devotee learns from him. Guyam Akyati Prichati. So what this is, an experienced devotee explaining and an inexperienced devotee learning. But the same goes for just having conversations with somebody where you're revealing your mind. There's different types of relationships that call for different types of etiquette. And it's important in the next verse, in Nectar of Instruction, Rupa Goswami talks about those 3 types of relationships. So it's important to get them right. So the 3 types of relationships are senior to junior, junior to senior, and peer to peer. So it's important that we know them and we act accordingly, right? Because there's an etiquette involved with each one. So we're going to go over each one. All right, senior to junior. So a senior devotee gives advice, guidance, and instructions to a junior devotee. That's what they do. That's their service to them. They don't reveal their mind to the junior. And the junior does not advise, guide, or instruct the senior. This is the etiquette. So my question to you, to all of you is, why shouldn't a senior reveal their minds to a junior? What's the problem? You have a thought?
Because the junior won't know what to do with that.
Okay, that's one thing, right? The junior won't know what to do with it. Can we? Right. Okay. Right, exactly. That's one reason. What's another one? Yeah, the junior could be judgmental. It can disturb their consciousness. Like, what do you mean the senior devotee has, especially if the junior is very new and you start revealing your mind, yeah, I'm having this real struggle in my Krishna consciousness. Like, am I supposed to go to you for advice? Now it doesn't mean that the senior is not allowed to have struggles in their spiritual life. It's just that there's a particular person they're supposed to reveal that to, and it's not the junior devotee. They're there to teach and guide. And so that junior may not understand it. Now, of course, there's gradations. When someone's a junior devotee to a senior devotee and they've been practicing for, 40 years, then it's a little different. But still, the etiquette should remain, right? So it's different. Like you can see in a relationship between a spiritual master and disciple, it may change over time slightly. Right. In the beginning, the guru is really just like, you gotta take a shower every day. You gotta go to Mangalarti. And as the disciple makes advancements in spiritual life, is anyone else logged into Zoom? This we can maybe mute people if they forget to unmute. Yeah, but I got the whole mouse thing going on here. It doesn't work. I'll mess it all up. If anybody's unmuted on Facebook, Zoom, please mute. Because I can't get there. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, okay. Don't mute me. I'll mute into my next slide. And then hide. How do you hide that?
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Think we. Okay, you had a question?
Yeah, in the same time. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
right. Yeah. Actually, there's no description that we mean came into existence in a material body. Okay, spiritually, we don't come into existence. We always exist. So we don't actually come into existence, but we all have always existed equally. But we're in bodies right now, and our bodies are under amnesia. And we're trying to remember how, like, we're in this consciousness that we want to lord it over, right? We want to be the lords of everything. And then we suddenly find out that, oh, actually, there's God and we should serve him and the Vaishnavas. We don't instantly become a pure devotee once we discover that we're going in the wrong direction. So the example I've heard given is like, you're going 80 miles an hour down the highway and you realize you're going the wrong way. I've heard people find out that they're in another state before they figured out they were going the wrong way. And you're not just, as soon as you know you're going the wrong way, you're not automatically going the right way. You have to slow down, you got to get off the exit, you got to turn around, you got to get back on, you got to pick up speed. So when we're turning around during that process, we're immature in our understanding. We're immature in our practice, and we still have the conditioning of trying to lord it over. And so somebody else, they're way further down the highway. So they're like, yeah, over here, come this way. Like, I'll wait for you. Just come this way. I'll guide you to get off the exit and start coming in this direction.
Into account because some of us might have been consciousness. Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Our tradition of this whoever is practicing this paradigm for family
Yeah.
is that enough to take that into account. One other times solution is taken into account. Example, that's supposed to have practicing for 40 years. Some is practicing for 10 years. So this one,
Yeah.
seen in this one.
Yeah.
But that person practice 200 years.
Yeah.
In this one, then this one, 10 years.
Yeah.
Then
Well, if you've been practicing for 200 years and you still didn't get it right, you might still be junior because you're doing something wrong. So, in this life, yes, the etiquette is always there. That's why Rupa Goswami dedicates a verse to it. The etiquette is always there. Now, how someone behaves is a huge factor, right? But they still are going to show that, like Lord Chaitanya still showed the etiquette of surrendering to his guru. He even, what was his, Ramachandra Puri was offending him left and right, and he still remained humble and see him as a senior. And everybody knew Lord Chaitanya was, much more advanced, and of course he's God. But he still, to show the rest of the world how you should behave, didn't matter if he was God, he still behaved on that platform. And same with Krishna, he went to Gurukul. So why would he go to Gurukul? He could say, well, never was there a time when I wasn't God,
yeah, so you can just see from this one. Actually,
Yeah. I mean, if someone joins the movement and 2 weeks later, they're like, look, I was practicing for 20 years in my past life. I'm senior to you. We can't, that would be silly. So we're just saying, here's where I am now, here's where I'm at, and we act accordingly.
And I also did multiple solution.
It can. Yeah,
Uh,
it might not be, depends on how intentional we are in our practice, because there is a verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bahujanma Kariyari Shavana Kirtana Tabutana Paya Krishna Pari Premadana. If one is infested with the 10 offenses and chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, despite his endeavor to chant the holy name for many births, he will not get love of Godhead. So that's another whole class. We got to avoid offenses and be intentional about our practice. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. Okay, I'm gonna move along just to make sure we have enough time. Let's see what time it is, 6:05. Okay, I just did this one, right? Senior to junior. Okay, so junior to senior. So the junior seeks advice, guidance, and instructions from the senior. The junior reveals the mind to the senior, and the senior gives advice, guidance, and instructions to the junior. So it's just the flipped thing of what we just talked about. That's what juniors go to seniors for. They don't go to seniors and say, so how was your day? And tell me what's on your mind, right? That's not appropriate. That's not what you do. You go to the senior to ask for instructions, to ask for advice, to ask for guidance. And as I said, there's gradations as someone makes advance. If someone's been around for 40 years and their senior has been around for, well, I guess that maybe I'm shooting too high with that, because the senior would have to be around for about 50 years, which is possible. I think it's even happening already. We have Prabhupada disciples who have been around for over 50 years. But their relationship changes slightly. There's still that reverence and that etiquette, but they're gonna be the guru is gonna be a little different with them. The disciple's gonna have a little more freedom because they've learned how to do things properly. So for example, Prabhupada, even when his disciples were only in the movement for a few years, he started asking them, please manage so I can translate, just do the management. They still, of course, always came to him for guidance, but he started to give them more and more freedom as they learned more and more. Okay, and then peer to peer. The peer seeks advice from another peer. They reveal their mind, feelings to the peer for feedback, support, even to vent, right? If you're going through some difficult thing, you might just vent, like, I had this thing irritated me, I'm not sure what to do. They're going to go to your peers for that. And then peers equally exchange thoughts, ideas, and support, right? There's a fine line. You can call it kind of instructing. So if I call a friend who's a peer and I say, hey, I wanted to get your feedback on this or your advice, right? Say, I went through this thing, and I'm not sure what to do. And then the peer might say things to consider. Well, have you considered this or that? It's different than someone instructing you. Which, that can get a little difficult if you ever take up management in ISKCON and you have to manage your peers. That's another whole class. So that my question is why do you think it's important? We're supposed to have all three relationships. We're supposed to have relationships with seniors, with peers, with juniors. Why? Why not just with seniors? Why should we have relationships with peers? Or why should we have relationships with juniors? Or why as seniors should we, why should we have these relationships? What are some of the reasons? Oh, can you pass the mic back? Okay. What else? What's another reason? Anyone else? Why is it so important to have these relationships? All of them.
I couldn't really hear what anyone said, but like I was thinking for like a healthy balance of perspectives, and also because people are walking along the same problems and path as you, so there's like a solidarity in helping each other through that and creating deeper
Okay.
bonds.
Yeah.
Also, sometimes senior devotees aren't available, so like peers tend, like you can have more availability with people who are peers, and also the offering of wisdom to people junior than you is like a blessing. And then you also receiving like guidance from seniors is a blessing. So
Okay,
everyone's kind of blessing each other. I feel like that's another aspect.
okay, thank you. Go ahead.
So I think Krishna consciousness actually that require nutritions or
Okay, right, right, right. Yeah, yeah, it's a good point. Thank you. Anyone else?
So God is the reason in each of us, right? So senior to senior, junior to junior, all the, you know, each other, talking one, God, Lord, same Lord. So the same relation with each other is all.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, if no one has anything else, I have a few thoughts, which I think is on my next slide. Okay. So if you don't have senior or peer association, you might feel compelled to reveal your mind to juniors. And we talked about what the problem was with that, right? What's the problem with revealing the mind of senior to a junior is that it could disturb the junior. It could shake their faith a little bit. It could disturb them. They may give the wrong, they're most likely going to give the wrong advice if they're younger. So if you don't have that peer association, then you have, and you need to reveal your mind in confidence because it's part of the process to talk about what's on your mind and to work through it with somebody. So you need someone to do that with. And so if you don't have that peer or that senior, the only thing you have left is juniors. And then if you only have juniors, you run into that problem. Without senior association, one may become complacent and misguided, right? So complacent meaning I hang out with my friends casually, my peers, and we kind of like vent to each other, but we're not really getting instructions or anything. It's not really compelling us forward. We're just kind of hanging out, chanting sometimes, eating prasadam and just hanging out, right? And then without junior association, I think just Karen touched on this, is that you deprive others of guidance and you can become complacent because again, if you're just hanging out with peers or seniors, then you're not engaging yourself in helping to guide others. And then because when you guide other people, you want to make sure you give them the proper advice, which means you have to make sure you know the philosophy because you can't just tell them any random thing that you whimsically think might be a good idea. You have to give them proper guidance, which means you got to stay on top of your game, which means you got to read. You have to chant properly. You have to read. You have to study. You have to apply. You have to learn from seniors. And then you pass that down to juniors. So those are some of the reasons that I thought of for, why we need these relationships. Yeah.
This attach speak out about the
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And this I see very much inside. It's not the company because it's not about it.
You hope. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that depends on how the person was raised, I think, how nervous they are around authority. Right? They want to do their best and they may have grown up with someone, parents who just chastise them all the time. So they're afraid of making a mistake. So if that's based on the individual, and that's the only thing we could do as if we're seniors is guide them through it. Or peers to let them have them come and reveal their mind about it and then work through it. Okay, so my next slide is kind of useless because I already answered that one. Okay, so I want to go back to this. I want to focus, this exchange to me is, I mean, they're all important, but there's some points about this one that I want to talk about this. So my question is why do you think this one's so vitally important? Revealing your mind to somebody in confidence. Why is that so important in our practice of Krishna consciousness? Herman, does someone want to pass the mic, whoever has it?
Was thinking one, exactly, but and then two, I think it's good to talk about things with people who know this.
Okay. Right. Okay, thank you. So when we go to someone to reveal our mind in confidence or get guidance, do we just tell them how perfect we are in Krishna consciousness? Is that what we're going to them for? What are we going to them for? Seek help for what? Right. So we have to tell them what we're doing wrong, right? So what does that require? Oh, here's Praneshwar, our Prashadam service acharya. You're the Prashad Seva acharya. So we have to tell them things we're doing wrong. So because we have to say what we're doing wrong, what does it require on the part of the person hearing us that they don't do? They won't judge us. Yeah, we're not supposed to judge people. Now, and how do we feel comfortable going to somebody to reveal our deepest secrets? We trust them. Yeah, exactly. We have to trust them. What do they have to not do? Like, what do they do? What would they do to break our trust? Actually, so you could pass the mic. You can hear Meenakshi. What would they do? What would someone do to break our trust?
Break confidentiality.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Okay. And then Karen added that they break confidentiality. Right. So so those are two major things. If you go to somebody and you say, I'm having a really hard time, I'm not able to follow yada yada reg, one of the regulative principles. I've been having trouble with it. What should I do? And the person says, you're in Maya and you're a nonsense. And they're just like, how could you do that? Don't you know? Don't you know what the regs are? People ask that question as if you've never heard what they are. When they start saying stuff like that, you just think, okay, I guess you're not the person I can go to figure out how I can get over this obstacle, right? And then you find out that that basically was posted on ISKCON News, your whole story. The whole society finds out about it. And then you think, oh my God, it's so, you're embarrassed. You may even think like, should I stay in this movement? I had an experience once. I have to say this. I in one temple in one place in this country, I was talking to someone about something I was going through. And the women's ashram was up a few flights of stairs. And by the time we were done speaking, I swear by the time I got to the bottom of this like few flights of stairs, the people at the bottom already knew. And it was a confidential conversation. And I realized this is not a person I can go to anymore in the future. I realized that like She didn't just tell somebody later on. She started like announcing it. So it was, if someone's too immature, we have to be discretionary about who we go to for advice, who we go to. Because if you've ever met somebody, have you ever met somebody who says to you, they told me not to tell anybody, but have you ever met anyone like that? Have you ever had someone do that? What do you say to them when they say that? Do you say, oh, you could just tell me? It says, what is it? What do you say to them typically? Or what should you say? If someone says they told me not to tell anybody, but what would you say to them?
Don't tell me.
Then don't tell me. I'm someone, because what I've heard, I know somebody used to do this. She would say, they told me not to tell anybody, but, and so I say, well, then don't tell me. And well, I know you won't tell anybody. Yeah, but I'm somebody. And they told you not to tell anybody. And what if I tell somebody who I know won't tell anybody, and they tell someone who they know won't tell anybody, and it spreads anyways, right? So it's when when somebody does that, that's not someone you go to reveal your mind in confidence. Now, and if they come to you and try to reveal what somebody else says, you stop them. Just stop them. It doesn't matter how enticing it sounds. Like, oh, I want to hear this. It doesn't matter. Just stop them. And then that also teaches them not to do that. It shows them that there's a standard that we should follow. Right. So we have to allow, because if people always have to pretend they're more advanced than they are, they can never make advancement. They're always just pretending. If they can never reach out to someone, how can I get over these obstacles because they'll be judged, then they can't make advancement. So this is such an important one. And it's really important, again, to know who you should go to and who you shouldn't go to. And then even then, like sometimes I'll clarify with somebody if they come to me with something that seems like it may not be confidential. I'll ask them, does this need to remain confidential? Maybe a decision they're trying to make about moving somewhere. Is this meant to be confidential? And I start conversations with, just between you and me, please don't let anybody know, not even your guru. Just, this is a conversation I want to just have with you. So I let people know that in advance, typically. And, they become used to it after a while. That I know we always stipulate that in the beginning. So I want to, how much time do we have? I wanted to share a verse from the Bhagavatam that shows even Krishna knows that we have troubles in our spiritual life and that we should be able to go to somebody to talk about it. So this is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 20, text 27 and 28. Having awakened faith in the narrations of my glories, being disgusted with all material activities, knowing that all sense gratification leads to misery, but still being unable to renounce all sense enjoyment. Like, look, you're disgusted with it and you still can't give it up, right? So it shows how difficult it is, this conditioning. My devotee should remain happy and worship me with great faith and conviction. Even though he is sometimes engaged in sense enjoyment, my devotee knows that all sense gratification leads to a miserable result, and he sincerely repents such activities. So, still being unable to renounce all sense enjoyment, my devotee should remain happy and worship me with great faith and conviction. That means that when someone comes to us with these difficulties, we should remember this verse that even Krishna knows it's a very difficult path to follow. It's very difficult. And we're so conditioned. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains this in the Madhurya Kadambini, that as we're going through the process of Krishna consciousness, we may have trouble maintaining our vows. Now, we shouldn't read that and say, I got the green light, I can sometimes not follow my vows. The point is trouble following it means you're trying your hardest to follow it. And you should always try your hardest. But if we kind of slide into a little sense gratification, then we should go to somebody to talk about it. And we should be able to go to somebody and they should understand that this is a natural part of the process. So being judgmental doesn't fix anything. It doesn't benefit you. It doesn't benefit the person being judged. It gets you nowhere. It's like you're dead in the water. So if you want to keep moving forward, you don't judge, you troubleshoot. I always say, for me, no matter what's going on in my spiritual life or anyone else's spiritual life, we troubleshoot. What do you think led to the fall down? What do you think led to you not chanting your japa that day? What led to that? What did you do the day before? Who did you hang out with? What did you eat? You know, what time did you go to bed? You start troubleshooting. Because if I just say, well, you're just a nonsense, like, okay, thanks, nothing gets fixed, right? Nothing at all. But if you troubleshoot, someone could say, well, I did, you know, do such and such thing. Okay, well, why don't you try tomorrow to get on a better schedule, or try not eating out at restaurants, or try, you know, you start to troubleshoot and figure out what, how can we make this go better, a little smoother in the future? And that's how people make progress, by learning how to troubleshoot, not how to judge and make people feel horrible about what they did. Because what we each have our own spiritual life to practice. It doesn't affect my spiritual life negatively if you break the regs. It has nothing to do with my spiritual life. It's your spiritual life, and I'm here to help you in any way I can if you want help. But judging is just, it means I might be insecure in my own spiritual life, actually. Okay, so before we go to the last one, we have 5 minutes. Does anyone have any points or questions? Yeah, do you have the, does someone have the mic?
Just like the giving of the risk. Okay, this is what it says. Like, what does it mean? About
Well, bodily concept of life means that I identify with my body as my true identity. And the reason why I got that false identity is because I prefer to be God than serve God. So that's the problem with it, is that we're seeing Krishna's energy, or like our body or anything in this material world, as separate from Krishna. When we start connecting everything with Krishna, we see things as they are. When we start seeing our body as given to us by Krishna as a vehicle, and we start to see that this is not my true identity, then again, we're going to make that intentional effort to, how do I get out of that bodily concept? By hearing and chanting. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, all the 9 processes of devotional service. And they have to be done with quality. Again, Bahujanma Kariyari, if we chant for many births, like with offenses, then we won't get anywhere. So all the service we do, all the chanting we do, the japa, the kirtan, the service to the deities on the altar, whether it's in the temple or at home, cooking for the deities, it should all be done with the mentality that I'm doing this for the pleasure of Krishna. This is not something to just get done. And if we start going into that consciousness of, I got to just get my rounds done. What can distract me while I chant my rounds? You know, what can I look at while I'm chanting? What can I pay attention to instead of Krishna? Or how can I just get this cooking done as quickly as possible? Then we're back into that consciousness of whatever's best for me, whatever's, you know, most the path of least resistance. How can I get back to my sense gratification and get this other stuff out of the way? That doesn't really make us, we don't really make advancement that way. But if we go into it thinking, what's the best I can possibly do for Krishna? The best kirtan, the best boga, the best japa, then we make that advancement. We come out of the bodily concept of life, and we realize, like, I'm a servant of Krishna, and Krishna reciprocates. It's not just that there's an impersonal form somewhere that just accepts all of our service and ignores us. Right? There's an exchange, just like we're talking about exchanges here amongst devotees. There's an exchange with Krishna, that he sees what we are doing, and for every step we take towards him, he takes 10 towards us. And he wants us back more than we want to go back. So anything we do for Krishna, he reciprocates so much. And when someone reaches that stage of pure love of God, then Krishna becomes purchased by that devotee, becomes controlled by that devotee's love, that pure love. So that answers your question. Okay, I'm just going to quickly, the third set of loving exchanges is accepting prasad and offering prasad, bhukte bojayate chaiva. So Prabhupada says, when a devotee distributes prasad, remnants of food offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in order to maintain our spirit of devotional service, we must accept this prasad as the Lord's grace received through the pure devotees. So I have to I have to make sure that every day I leave some room in my stomach for Praneshwar, who's always asking if he could serve me prasadam, and I say no because I already ate. I'm getting this instruction now from Prabhupada that I have to accept it as received through the pure devotees, as grace received through the pure devotees. The members of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness invite the society's members and supporters to dine with them when they hold love feasts in their branches every Sunday. Haribol. Many interested people come to honor Prasad, and whenever possible, they invite members of the society to their homes and feed them sumptuously with Prasad. I'm available if anyone wants to feed me with Prasad at their home. In this way, both the members of the society and the general public are benefited. And that's my last slide, and that's the end. Thank you all for joining and contributing. If you have any further questions, just come see me after the kirtan during Prasadam, or after I take a little Prasadam from Praneshwar. Jai, Nectar of Devotion, Nectar of Instruction ki jai, Srila Rupa Goswami ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.